Welcome into another episode of Behind the Glass Sports. I'm Aiden Dollins, joined as always by Hardy Graham. It's Wednesday. We said we were moving the show to Thursdays. Turns out that doesn't actually work, but it was a nice 3 weeks. And quite frankly, we'll do what we want, And I think that most people are probably just watching us back on YouTube now anyway. So, not that it really matters too much. We had some excellent football this weekend. We're here to talk about that. Hardy Graham. We had some excellent football this weekend.
Yeah, man. We got to see an absolute ESPN instant classic. Would rank number one on the old NCAA rankings in terms of the game score, everything involved with it. The viewership numbers from this past weekend's Alabama-Georgia game were just insane. A rematch of last year's SEC championship, and it absolutely lived up to the hype that was brought in coming into this game. A tale of two halves completely.
Yeah.
It's an example that there really is 4 quarters in a football game, and any team can come back and has a chance to win at any given moment. We'll get into some of the.
But there are some legitimate takeaways here. I mean, this wasn't a cupcake. This does mean things moving forward.
The first SEC game of Kalen DeBoer's tenure in Tuscaloosa is against the team that's won 2 national championships in the past 3 years.
Yep.
That is, first of all, just an insane task that was put on his plate, and he coached his ass off.
He really did.
Did a fantastic job. They had a really, really good game plan coming in. And a lot of that you probably watched some of the film from last year's Georgia game, saw that they had some serious issues covering Jalen Milroe, made sure to put him in all of the right spots, not try to force Jalen Milroe to be something that he is not. They played to Jalen Milroe's game. You saw after the game, Jalen Milroe was hugging Alabama offense coordinator Nick Sheridan, if I'm not mistaken. That is his name. Goes to show you that any quarterback can be successful if they're put in the right position, especially guys that are, 4- and 5-star talent that are, one of the most dynamic playmakers in all of college football. And Jalen Milroe, what he did this past Saturday, really the first, quarter and some change.
The first 20 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah, shows that he is, right up there in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in college football. Some people were jumping the gun a little bit, saying that he, could end up being the number 1 pick. We will see that.
Ryan Williams can't come out, so.
Yeah, if he can continue to maintain this level, especially against a Georgia defense that has just been stout since Kirby Smart arrived in that campus in Athens. They really just played their game. Everything went smoothly the first 20 minutes, as you said. And then, to me, just watching it kind of looks like they, took their foot off the gas a little bit, started getting really conservative on offense and defense, especially in that second half. The defense was not dialing up the blitzes and stuff that were getting in Carson Beck's face, weren't getting the pressure that they got in the first half. They made some really good plays, converted on like every single one of their 4th downs.
They looked in the second half, honestly, like the Washington Commanders the last 2 weeks have.
Yeah.
If it's minus 40 or better, we got 4 downs.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Georgia for staying competitive. That shows a lot about that team. Being down 28 points and saying, you know what, we think that we are the best team in the country. We're going to be able to come back and make this a competitive football game. And they took the lead.
Yeah. They didn't fall short on the comeback attempt. They got there. They did it. And then Alabama decided to play offense again for another, 16 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. The Georgia team, will be in the college football playoff. I wholeheartedly believe that. That game in Austin will probably be pretty tough for them, but I think they can beat just about any other team on their schedule. They get Tennessee at home. Ole Miss after this past weekend, I don't know if they're going to make the college football playoff. They have some serious soul searching to do. But
that, or we need to be giving Kentucky a little bit more respect than we've been giving them, especially after the 13-12 loss at home to Georgia.
Yes, Mark Stoops has done some very, very good things up there in Lexington,
and we kind of wrote him off, not us personally, but as a collective coming into this season. We were like,
they're probably gonna end up like a 6-6 football team. I mean,
we were pretty much calling for Stoops to turn back into a pumpkin.
Yeah, but I mean, he has a former 5-star quarterback at the helm. That defense was really good. So hopefully they can continue to be competitive in the rest of their SEC games this schedule. But getting back to the Alabama-Georgia game, like I said, that first quarter, pretty much going up and just punching Georgia right in the mouth sent a message not only to just Georgia, but all of the college football world that they have not lost a step since Nick Saban left Tuscaloosa. In fact, the offense, you could argue, is one of the best that we've had in the past 20 years. There's been some teams, the
whole Lane Kiffin, Sarkisian, Locks with the rideouts thing, that was nice, but that was an anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very good stretch of Alabama football. And, during that time, they also had a defense that they could fall back on and were just, incredible. And they were just blowing teams out. This Alabama team has an opportunity to be right up there with them. They have the playmakers on offense, one of which being a 17-year-old kid from Saraland, Alabama, that Aiden Dollins got the chance to see when he was a sophomore. And he said, that kid is going to be the best receiver in college football in 2 years. Well, he actually said 3 years because, again, he was a sophomore.
Yeah, he was a sophomore.
So Aiden didn't think. He was like, in 3 years when he's in Tuscaloosa.
I didn't realize the kid had like a 4.5 and was already taking a bunch of AP classes,
Yeah. No,
to go with it.
Yeah, so, Ryan Williams, first couple of weeks, he showed out. He was very good, but the question was he going to be able to do this against SEC talent? Was he going to be able to do this against former 4- and 5-star defensive backs, guys like Malachi Starks that have just been anchoring that Georgia defense for, years? Was he going to be able to get off the line, beat some of that press coverage, or not just be bullied around by these bigger, stronger, not faster, but bigger and stronger, more experienced defensive backs? And
the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Simply,
the answer is he really didn't have a problem with it at all.
It's all child's play to him. It's all just it's all just a frolic of folly. Nothing more than that. I swear this kid only gives a damn about scoring so that he can dance.
Oh yeah, he loves it. I
don't think he cares about football. He just wants to dance in front of that many people.
Yes, he loves just.
All that's going through his head the whole way is go score, you can dance. Go score, you can dance.
Yes, and he danced a lot.
Yep.
And he's going to be dancing in Tuscaloosa, for the next 3 seasons.
Emmitt Smith, who are you?
Yeah, look, he's, there's been jokes like, did you realize that he's 17 years old? It's like they had to mention it in the broadcast about 100 times.
It's right up there with the Taylor Swift thing.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he is 17 years old.
I've been in that situation. It was the first summer I played with Chesapeake Rage with Coach Foote. Before my junior year of high school, we had a guy who was playing up. He was a rising 8th grader, and we were playing in the higher level varsity AAA tournaments in the Mid-Atlantic. It's lacrosse. His older brother was on the team. We said, to hell with it. Sure, bring him out. He would put up 4 or 5 goals every single game on guys that are committed to Loyola, Hopkins, Maryland, Virginia. Coach Foote was signing us up to be cheese going through the grader in these tournaments just so we get looks. And he's having hat tricks in the first half every single game we play. And so the whole time we're screaming, he's in 8th grade. Of course they're doing it. To the guys on the field, it's not just that somebody went out there and made that spectacular play. There really is, to the guys on that team and in that locker room, this whole other exponential level of dude, this guy's supposed to be in high school.
Yeah.
And he's out here effing off with us,
They mentioned that they brought in Ryan Williams and they were like, hey, you're going to have to earn your position on this team. Fully justified. We knew the talent he was coming in. Did I think he was going to make an impact as a freshman, as a 17-year-old like this? Not necessarily. I thought he would be worked into the wide receiver rotation a bit, would kind of catch his footing a little bit later into the season. They'd find ways to use him more. But, they said that a week into fall camp, Jalen Miller walked up to the offensive staff and said, "Y'all have to get this kid on the field because
I would like to throw the ball to him,
incredible.
please and thank you."
He was like, and for a guy like Jalen Miller who loves to throw the ball down the field, Ryan Williams is the perfect receiver. He's going to be able to, help whoever the quarterback is next year. Just pretty much have an outlet right there saying, you have this guy who can pretty much catch anything, will go up, make some crazy toe touch down the sidelines, spin around, and then keep going, and has enough of a burst to make 5-star defensive backs look slow.
Okay, so let's let that play out for a second. You're talking about next year's quarterback. All right. So you got this team that Kalen DeBoer, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is playing a lot of freshmen that are going to be here.
Yeah.
It's reasonable to expect that this team actually takes a step next year. We could actually sit here and reasonably expect that right now, probably depending on what the portal in the spring looks like. Yeah. So who else do we remember sitting behind multiple generationally great quarterbacks, just kind of biding his time, burning eligibility, getting better, and then stepping onto the field with potentially an all-time cast of characters around him and going on a bit of a run and having one wide receiver that just absolutely took the top off of the game whenever you wanted him to? I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, and I can't remember if he won a national championship in 2021.
Yeah, I think he probably did. If you have a situation where a Ty Simpson comes in, and Ty Simpson's got all the talent in the world, it could be Austin Mack. Who knows? Keelan Russell could step on campus as a freshman next year and really impress people. We don't know what the team is going to be next year. I would probably put my eggs in the Ty Simpson basket right now. But he's got a chance to do what Mac Jones did. He's got all of these weapons. The defensive backs, Jalen Bakwe, really, he's been kind of a rotational guy on that defense, but has stepped in and done a really, really good job. One of the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the season in terms of Kane Womack's defense, what he was really successful with at South Alabama, probably the only thing that I would would look at with his South Alabama defenses and say, he's done a really, really good job, is with the defensive backs. Had some very, very good guys down there. Yam Banks was.
Although, hey, look at what they're doing 1 year removed from him. Might be time to start giving him some more credit. Maybe he stepped away, as that dish was about to come off the stove.
Maybe. But some of those South Alabama games, it kind of was reminiscent of what happened in the this Georgia game this past weekend. They had a very good offense with Major Applewhite as the OC, and they'd take leads, let off the gas a little bit, got a little less aggressive on defense, gave up a lot of leads, lost some football games doing that. You don't have to go blitz like you did in the first half, giving Carson Beck possibly the worst first half of his college football career. You don't need to, send that much pressure, but keep him honest.
You don't have to not do it at all the rest of the game. Yeah. And this is the gripe that a lot of us in DC would have with Kyle Shanahan way back in the day. And I think you're starting to maybe see this narrative come back a little bit. Kyle Shanahan, when he was calling plays for his dad in Washington, would dial up, he would get something going that would work in the first half. A lot of cases, it was specifically the run game with Roy Halou and Alfred Morris and those guys. And he would get that going, and then we'd have a lead. We'd go into halftime, and we just would come out and not run the ball anymore.
Yeah.
At all. And we'd lose the game. So I hear what you're saying. And sometimes very good coaches can have that, sort of vulnerability in maybe overthinking the scheme of it.
Yeah. And, you have with guys like Jalen Milroe, and I know they had an opportunity to go up 35-7 right there at the end of the half. That kind of, I don't want to say freak interceptions kind of behind him, weird tip pass. You gave up an
happens.
opportunity right there. The best quarterbacks in the league have thrown passes like that. But they saw that and they were like, okay, we don't want to make mistakes. That was kind of the mentality coming out in the second half is, hey, we're going to be really conservative with the football. In the fourth quarter, I don't know about you, it really got on my nerves when they'd be up 2 touchdowns, and instead of trying to run the play clock all the way down to like 3 or 4 seconds, they were snapping the ball with 12 seconds left. You're just, those are precious seconds that you can tick off the play clock, really make an impact later in the game. If you had run some of that time off the clock, then perhaps Georgia wouldn't have even gotten a chance. Final drive to tie up the game. Just kind of situations like that.
And I'm really not a fan. In fact, I kind of actively dislike when the announcers, especially in a big game like that, with like some of the best coaches in the business, start openly criticizing or like questioning what the coach is doing as far as like clock management or like making decisions. I don't think that's their role. Kind of rubs me the wrong way, but it was not unjustified there.
No, it was not unjustified.
It was wrong. It was bugging me how bad they were harping it, but they weren't wrong.
It wasn't quite Peyton Manning watching the first game that Russell Wilson was under the not Josh Heupel, his first game in Denver, where he was just like, is somebody going to call a timeout? Somebody going to call a timeout?
You going to burn one of these timeouts here?
Yeah, it was not like egregious like that. Tide ultimately did have enough time to go down, score, and take the lead back in this football game. If they run some of the time off the clock, who knows? Maybe they don't have that opportunity.
And not that it ended up mattering. Not you ended up scoring in -3 seconds, but you didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah,
and honestly, you could make the argument further that play, as spectacular as it was, dialing that up right off the rip might have been an act of mismanagement of the clock in and of itself.
I mean, a batshit crazy call to say, okay, first down, we just got the ball back. Georgia just took the lead. We're just going to rip one down the field to the 17-year-old kid.
We kind of stopped doing it the entire half, and so now that we need one right here, we're going to go back to doing the thing we were doing before. It almost feels like Georgia should have seen that coming, but the reason this is really like again almost an act of clock mismanagement is then this is one of the things that I took away from this game, not so much for this team this year, but fans getting a glimpse into what Kalen DeBoer's style is going to be and how he's going to operate moving forward long term. And that's the DB, the freshman Brown, the way he was getting picked on so badly in that back half. And I went and counted it up. He got burned pretty good once in the first half for a touchdown. And then he missed a couple of tackles, one of which gave up a touchdown. And then you have those like 4 deep shots, one early in the second half, and then the 3 on those 2 drives. And if it's not, and I like what Kalen DeBoer does in that the whole time that they have a lead that's notable still, leaves him out there. Doesn't rotate him off that side of the field, doesn't pull him, doesn't put somebody else in there that's older with a little more experience to make the adjustment. Let's Brown work through it, make the mistakes, and learn in real time in the game. And I think moving forward as a player, he's going to be so vastly benefited by that. I think that is the best way to do it, but it rarely happens that you can. And really, once Georgia's within a score and up or try to come back at the end of the game, you probably should shade him to the other side and move Malachi over there to help or something.
Yeah, and that final interception, they didn't press him. No. They let him. They set him back about 6-7 yards. Said, "Hey,"
which was the right call.
Yeah, go make a play. Don't get beat over top. And he was able to track the quarterback, track Carson Beck. Carson Beck looked down his receiver the whole way. Should he have made the throw? Who knows? Georgia fans can bitch and moan about that in their own podcast.
And it's possible DeBoer and Womack were kind of almost letting him have that until the moment they needed to take it from him, so he felt like it was safe.
And no idea if that is the case or not. But the way that this defensive scheme kind of works out is you have essentially you're playing like freshmen
Yeah.
at those corner positions, and you're just saying, hey, you're going to go up there and you're going to press and you're going to, play very tight coverage on these guys.
It's go be the better athlete just when you're one-on-one.
Yeah, and it's okay because you have two very, very experienced safeties playing over top that if you do get beat, they are there to help you. They're more than okay. Obviously you don't never want your player to get beat down the field. You don't want them to lose their one-on-one battle, but guys, you have help down the field. You have guys that have experience, know what they're doing. Malachi's playing his like 5th year of football. And he's been really
He's
really
on game 108 of his college career.
Yeah, him and Keon Saab have been really good throughout this point in the season. It's like guys just go out there, make plays, try to do something, play within yourself, of course. Don't try to do too much, but know that you have help on the backside. And those guys are going to help cover some of the mistakes that you're going to make. And we know that you're going to make mistakes because, like we mentioned, these are true freshmen out there being tasked with playing against a team that's won two national championships in the past 3 years. And so, they're going to have more opportunities. They're going to play offenses this season that are probably better than Georgia's, that have more playmakers. They have to go on the road to LSU and Tennessee, both of which have just, really high-powered offenses with Garrett Nussmeier and Nico Iamalava. Both of those guys can really sling the ball around the yard. Getting the opportunity to learn here is huge for their development. It's going to be, big time for those guys come later in the season.
And I want to make a quick side note here. I believe there may be a few members of the audience that may have smirked or chuckled lightly at the mentioning of Garrett Nussmeier as one of those quarterbacks. I think those people need to watch some football.
You need to watch Garrett Nussmeier play if you think that he is a bad quarterback.
He's on the precipice of being a dangerous quarterback. He might he might just be your average, not statue, but like he might just be your average quarterback, game manager type guy.
Yeah.
But sometimes one of those average game managers suddenly shows you that they are Brock Purdy. And that's what Garrett Nussmeier feels like he's on the precipice of.
Yeah. Those guys have crazy talent. These are guys. I mean, we saw Garrett Nussmeier do. He's done really good things throughout the early part of the season. Pretty much going toe to toe with Miller Moss in that USC game. Had really no issues this past weekend playing against South Alabama. I didn't really expect that to be much of a game. But you also have to go to Death Valley. It's going to be a very difficult environment. You got to go to Knoxville. Both of those teams are very offense-minded. A different dynamic versus the Georgia team that you just played that is very heavily reliant on their defense.
Yeah.
And
watching this game and watching the way the second half went, you mentioned the interception before halftime. You do have to wonder if maybe because you're going against such a mind like Kirby Smart, those adjustments were made more drastically. I don't know. Maybe that's different against Brian Kelly and Josh Heupel. Those adjustments were made and they didn't work. And you kind of didn't really give me confidence that if you get into an absolute shootout, if it's just a boat race with, Josh Heupel in Knoxville, I see that you have the pieces and the talent and everything on the roster to be in that. I worry that the play calling won't be consistent enough for the team to stay in a shootout.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, you have the pieces, and that first 20 minutes shows that Nick Sheridan can absolutely dial up plays with some of the best play callers in college football. Ran all of that
meter sprint.
Yeah, ran everything in that first quarter as perfectly as you could possibly imagine. Shout out Caden Proctor for the work that he put in this past Saturday. Man was absolutely
he was blocking
that Georgia defense. Jalen Milroe played a fantastic game. Just one quick note, not a big one. Sometimes he needs to just hand the ball off on some of these reads because it does get a little, he is the most dynamic player on the team. but sometimes he does make a handful of bad reads throughout the game and pulls the ball because he's trying to make plays, which I understand. The team puts him in position to go out there and make plays. If he's not making plays, this team is not making plays. But sometimes, a handoff to Jan Miller or Justice Haynes doesn't necessarily hurt your case, especially when you're just trying to pick up a couple of yards.
Can I piggyback on your
the
note?
only gripe I have with how we played this past Saturday.
Can I piggyback on your note?
Yes.
I have perhaps an even more minute gripe with that. The times that you do take 3 seconds to decide to hand the ball off, don't decide to hand the ball off half a second before Jan Miller gets tackled 3 yards behind the line. Please.
Yes.
Throw it at his feet. Spike it next to him on the ground. Do the Donovan McNabb. Okay? That is all.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add on this game? Alabama run defense did a fantastic job against Trevor Etienne. Kwarusaw is awesome. Jahad Campbell is fantastic. The Alabama football Twitter page, after that interception, immediately just posted Jahad, and so it was
Nick Saban is gone.
So of course it was clipped. So anytime some really horrible things happen in the Middle East or wherever else in the world, you're going to see that image pop up somewhere. Just be prepared for it if you're on Twitter in the next, 10 years or something like that.
Some intern didn't want to have to Photoshop it later down the road.
Yeah. So it'll be there. You will see it. And I think this Alabama team still has another level to be reached on offense. There's a lot of guys that really have not gotten a ton of touches. Kendrick Law could definitely use the ball more.
Richard Young's legs are feeling pretty fresh right about now.
Jeremy Bernard, 5 receptions for 25 yards. Just
they've been using him in the sweep action a lot, though. He's been getting, and he's such an excellent downfield blocker. Shout out to
him and Kendrick Law. I mean, shout out these wide receivers for their ability.
But that was a staple of DeBoer's teams,
Yeah, being able to block downfield because if you have receivers that are, and that's a case of being bought into the system. Saying, hey, if you go and you block downfield, trust me, the ball will come your way. So that's just one thing to we can clap our hands about. And
it's so important that it's like the legitimate 1, 2, and 3 wide receivers, like your guys that you're actually getting the ball to that are willing to do that. Because if you've got one of these wide receiver rooms where you've got to roll out wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 to get blocking downfield, everybody knows you're running the football. That doesn't
exactly. It definitely can mess up your scheme. They did well with penalty yards. A little.
It feels wrong to say that was a good performance for penalties, but the reality of the last few years is you're right.
Yeah, really throughout the early part of this season, especially looking back at the USF game. But
it felt like more of the same.
Penalties for 90 yards. You can obviously do better, but when you're playing in a really tight contest, especially with young corners going down the field, it's going to be some hand fighting stuff. Got called that Deontay Lawson got called on that holding call. That was, and all of the calls were justified.
I can see what you called trying to be as neutral an observer as possible. Some of them I still didn't like.
Yeah, and that's more than fair. Big game, and you never want to let a referee decide it. As a New Orleans Saints fan, I had to deal with that yet again this past Sunday.
You really did.
So it's you never want to put
Columbus did to Roger Goodell.
So you never want to put your team in position where the referee is going to make the game deciding call. Alabama got it done. Offense, defense, didn't have to worry about that.
No.
But Aiden, do you have anything else to say about this game? Any final tidbits? Any
final tidbit
about what the Tide has coming up this upcoming weekend?
No. I'm gonna get yard work done. I'm gonna listen on the radio.
Oh, okay.
I hope I can hear it over the lawnmower. It's a really loud lawnmower, and these headphones don't block a lot of noise. But let's be honest, it's Vanderbilt. I got to pick a day to do yard work. And I don't have anything else to say about the Tide right now because I have a lot of things to say about the Washington Commanders. And the Washington Commanders play on Sunday, Hardy. And that will be my football day this weekend. Oh, my goodness. Wow. There's a quarterback in D.C., which I know we already had this moment, but here we are having it again because we're in sole possession of first place in the NFC East. Jaden Daniels is playing like, late career Tom Brady, the way he's just watching everything happen, before it happens, and then bringing the athleticism to boot. Like, oh my God, we are spoiled. Suddenly, all these guys that you said, can we get some weapons besides Terry, please? You got rid of Jahan Dotson. And so I think a lot of Commanders fans were sitting here saying, like, okay, Noah Brown seems like a decent option, but like him and, Olamide Zaccheaus, and that's it besides Terry. Okay. Then Luke McCaffrey pans out. And Brandon Coleman ends up working out at tackle the way you thought he would in the third round. And you're getting some pretty good play out of Sandstrill in the secondary. And, turns out Oz is just, God's gift to Washington as far as just a utility receiver and special teams player. The running Austin Eckler still has every bit of juice in the tank. And the whole offensive line, call me crazy, Hardy, when you run the football, they play better.
Yeah, that is something as a former offensive lineman. I absolutely hated sitting in pass pro. If you can get the defense on their heels, run blocking, it makes pass protection a whole hell of a lot easier. Because you are beating up on the defensive line. It makes they are not necessarily getting off the snap as quick as they normally would, as if they can just pin their ears back, 3 straight downs, and go after the quarterback. Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal through the first 4 weeks of this NFL season. Should be the leading candidate for Rookie of the Year. Like without question. He's going. He has all of the talent. We've seen that. We've seen how good he was at LSU the past 2 seasons. Winning the Heisman Trophy, and a lot of people were sitting there making gripes about his size, everything like that. And he could, don't get me wrong, could absolutely put more muscle on those bones.
Yeah, I didn't really hear a whole lot of in DC, like I don't think it was so much. I'm nitpicking here. It wasn't a gripe, but there was like a genuine worry. Everyone's like, no, it's him, not May. But I'm watching Tua right now, and I'm just worried.
Yeah. The thing that Jaden Daniels, compared to Tua, Tua, like some of those injuries started piling up, like as a sophomore
in his first season as a starter. Yeah.
And so had he not had that hip injury, I don't even know what he could have been in the NFL. We'll see.
He never liked to really run anyway, even though I always found myself sitting there wishing he would just take off sometimes.
Yeah, I would do that as well. But Jaden Daniels knows how to run. He
knows when to run.
He knows when to run. He knows when to slide. He's, as a rookie quarterback in the NFL, he is a little bit, quote unquote, older than what people would consider a typical rookie in the NFL. So he has a lot of experience. He has played a lot of football games, and that is carrying over into this rookie season. He is showing out. He's showing why he was projected, a top 2 draft pick. The Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels debate for the number 1 overall pick, we can look back on in a couple of years and say maybe Jaden Daniels was the guy. Caleb Williams looked pretty solid this past Sunday relative to the first 3 games of the season. So, and
I think everybody would have a lot
similar issue as the Commanders, where it's just like is anyone ever really gonna figure it out what's going on there?
Not Shane Waldron.
Yeah, but right now JD looks, phenomenal, and shout out to him because
if he can keep this up in a division that has been won by a different team for the past, 25 seasons?
Since 2005.
Yeah, so
since the Eagles
21.
Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah. So they have a very real shot. The Cowboys don't really seem to have it together at this moment in time. Nick Sirianni loves to get in his own way. If the
and that center until they switch centers, nothing's happening in Philly.
Yeah. If the Commanders can continue to play within themselves, continue to get the ball to Scary Terry McLaurin, something that he has been. I mean, the man puts up 1,000-yard seasons with Aiden Dollins at quarterback. I can only imagine what this.
We rolled a boy that likes beer out there in Taylor Heineke, and the guy still looked like he would have been a legitimate wide receiver one on more than half the teams in the league.
Yes, and now he's finally got the quarterback that he's going to be able to rely on throughout the rest of his current contract. That throw in the back corner of the end zone against Cincinnati was, probably one of the best throws I've seen in this NFL season.
I've never seen a Washington quarterback make that throw.
If he can continue to do that, he will be up there in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the NFL, and that is something that I'm sure you are very happy to hear.
Incredibly. I never in my life have I been able, and I've said this to multiple people multiple times since Sunday. Just because I can, and I work with 160 people, so there's more people to say it to. Never before in my life have I been able to sit here and say that nobody can really, in good faith, make an argument against the Washington Redskins being a top 5 or 6 team in the NFL right now through the first 4 games that have been played.
Right now they've been phenomenal.
I'll put Kansas City up there. I'll put the way Minnesota's been playing. Houston. Who knows if the Niners' injuries are going to keep holding them back? I'm not putting San Francisco up there through 4 games.
Yeah. The Lions look really good.
Lions.
NFC standings, right now, the Commanders are sitting at number 3. Of course, we will see how all of this shakes out throughout the course of the season. Being a rookie quarterback, people are going to start throwing different things at you and seeing how you react to them. We've seen Caleb Williams. You can go look at the statistics of when he is facing pressure versus when he is not facing pressure. And when he is facing even the slightest bit, he turns into the quarterback that likes beer. He struggles. There's not very many quarterbacks in the NFL that really do handle that pressure super well. The ones that do are the ones that become household names and the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
And the only one that's ever become a really good quarterback and a household name without being able to handle pressure in any way, shape, or form, the only one to ever do it, I think, is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and
I can't face a blitz.
Kirk Cousins is like meme content quarterback. The man hadn't won a Monday Night Football game until 2 seasons ago, and then he kind of went on a crazy run where he was just
playing for the Redskins and the Vikings. Come on, man! I hate when people bring that up. Who won Monday Night Football games for the Redskins, and how many times did they play them?
No, I'm saying it is just a fun fact to point out.
Yes,
but Kirky is in Atlanta now, has led 2 game-winning drives this season.
He's playing really well.
He is playing well. That week 1, they were putting him in just the wrong type of offense. They were having him in the pistol. He had never run that before in his life, and they finally just backed him up 2 more yards.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna run everything out of shotgun. We're not gonna be stupid about this. We're gonna play to the strengths of the guy that we just paid, $180 million to, as you should, if you're going to bring in a quarterback like that. And do you have anything else to add on the Crimson Commanders?
On the Crimson Commanders, John Allen and Deron Payne. I don't think the numbers are going to tell the tale of what they do this season, and I think you're going to see a lot of people who are box score journalists coming out and writing about how, the statistical numbers production of Deron Payne and John Allen does not equate the money you're paying them. And my math says you should move on from them. I think that's going to continue this season because it seems like Deron Payne and John Allen are really just, I think their focus is just being such a presence without necessarily being the game wrecker in the middle for a lot of these schemes, to let the guys on the edge go take care of things, to let the middle linebackers, the outside linebackers come up, especially because you're playing a lot of scrambling quarterbacks in the NFL these days. In modern NFL, with all the pressure coming off the edge, it is the number one move for quarterbacks to just step up into the pocket. That's how everybody gets coached. When you leave John Allen and Deron Payne there and don't have them bull rushing forward in order to, potentially go past the quarterback stepping up in the pocket, they're not going to put up numbers, but it allows the defense to do other things around them and be effective. And you've seen that a little more and more through the last couple of weeks. But I think Bama fans are going to see a lot of people talking a lot of shit about John Allen and Deron Payne this year. And as a Commanders fan, I will tell you, turn on a Commanders game, watch every defensive snap of a series of drives, not the highlights, and you'll see, they are affecting the play.
And to that point, we're seeing a little bit of a shift kind of backwards in NFL mentality with the, addition of, two high safeties. More teams are starting to have to run the ball more effectively to be successful in the modern day NFL. And when you have two game wreckers sitting there at your defensive tackle spots, it makes running the football against you very, very difficult. Teams have had to deal with that against the Commanders for the past couple of seasons, but the past couple of seasons, the Commanders did not have the defensive backs on the back end to be able to support that run defense. This year, guys seem to have it figured out, at least early in the season. Dan Quinn doing a good job. Cliff Kingsbury is really dialing up things for Jaden Daniels. Shout out to him. He's,
I think there's already a bucket being passed around Benning Avenue to crowd fund, just paying Cliff Kingsbury enough money to not take a head coaching gig next year.
Yeah, and the Saints are kind of doing the same thing right now with Clint Kubiak.
A little bit, yeah.
If
I were y'all, look, if homeboy tries to leave, I'm sorry. I understand that the offensive coordinator before, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I understand that he was bad, all right. But Dennis Allen let him be bad for so long. This guy came in year one and turned around. If somebody's trying to pay him and take him from y'all next year, fire Dennis Allen and promote that guy.
Yeah, I would have to absolutely agree. 2 weeks ago when I was last on here, the New Orleans Saints were 2-0. Riding high off a win against the Dallas Cowboys. There was a lot of excitement down in the Big Easy about what this team could be, getting a chance, theoretically to play 3, possibly 4 home football games in the playoff because the Super Bowl is being held in New Orleans this season. So, it was just there was a lot of excitement coming into it. And the past
2 weeks in, 2 weeks in, y'all started looking at where the Super Bowl was?
Well, we knew where it already was. We were looking at it preseason because if they didn't get a couple of home playoff games down in the Superdome, then Dennis Allen would have been gone and we would have just blown up the whole team.
Fair enough.
But, to this point in the season, Saints now sitting at 2-2. Offense is still moving the ball effectively, playing. I mean, the problem over the past 2 weeks the Saints have had to deal with is that the two of the top 5 highest rated offensive linemen, according to Pro Football Focus, over the first 2 weeks, got injured against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, now you're banking on Trevor Penning, who has been solid up to this point, has not quite lived up to first round draft potential.
Such a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, but no, he has performed.
I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm just saying, as far as the way I see Saints fans talking about Trevor Penning, that's really polite.
Yeah, no,
you're professional.
Yeah, no, his first 2 seasons it was rough. But they moved him over to right tackle, and he seems to be doing better, especially in this Shanahan-esque zone run scheme. He is a really damn good run blocker. Him alongside Taliesin Kawaga over there on the left side, drafting him from Oregon State. Huge move by the Saints front office. He's been phenomenal as a rookie so far this season. If they can continue to run block effectively, put Trevor Penning in those type of situations, he can be a really solid offensive lineman. Can play a lot of football games. The Saints are, they're probably going to have to take offensive line again this upcoming offseason. They were not really planning on Ryan Ramczyk's knees just completely being absent of cartilage this offseason. He's essentially on indefinite IR.
He's starting to feel a little bit like the tail end of John Jansen's career, if you remember that. That was really tough to watch.
Yeah, but Ramczyk was projected to be the right tackle starter pretty much all throughout the offseason. Comes back in July. Hey, guys, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to go. So this Saints offensive line has had to fill a lot of gaps. First 2 weeks looked absolutely phenomenal. Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, guys were really, really good. Jalen Carter got the best of Cesar Ruiz, like a good bit throughout the first half of that Eagles game. But then
that's not a knock on a guy, but
no. But then now the Saints offensive line is kind of, especially in the interior, has had to kind of just work with a patchwork offensive line, kind of waiting on some of those, former all-pro level guys to come back. And so that is what the Saints are currently dealing with. They're still – and even with that being said, the defense is still phenomenal under Dennis Allen. They, create plays. Past two weeks, they got burned because, when a team has to drive 75 yards down the field, they decide they want to play man coverage, and guys just, that is what you bank on. That is what your team plays.
Right.
95% of
theory.
the time. That's what you're going to fall back on. Was it the right decision? No, probably not. You could probably just sit in zone and just, try to see if Kirk Cousins or Jalen Hurts that has not been performing that well can dice you up down the field. Either way,
you either get sliced up with the arm or you give up Tebow time. Because if you remember, all Tebow time was everybody dropping back into prevent defense at the end of the game when they had the lead, and Tebow running the ball. So which one do you want to give up there? You want to give up Tebow time or you want to give up the passes? And quite frankly, I'm taking Tebow time unless I'm playing Tim Tebow.
Yeah, and especially against the Falcons, the threat of Kirk Cousins running the ball is not present. So, you
simply offensive.
Defense in a situation where they're going to have to make plays. Bang bang call against Paulson Adebo sets up the Falcons in field goal range.
Yeah.
Just don't
Bob's your uncle.
Just don't put your team in a position where the refs are going to decide the football game. That's all I have to say about it. Whether the call was right, wrong, backwards, forward, sideways, who cares? That is stuff like that is up to the head coach to decide. Hey, you're in charge of the defense. Past 2 weeks, they have done a fantastic job. The Falcons did not score an offensive touchdown on Sunday. They had a Rashid Shaheed muffed a punt, and it bobbled right into the end zone. Falcons picked it, fell on it in the end zone, and Derek Carr threw a pick six.
All right, so what the hell happened that Rashid Shaheed muffed a punt and gave up a touchdown on a punt return and still put up 15 points on my bench in fantasy? Like, did he just have a generational game in addition to that? That's a broken scoring setting that I need Nathan Reed to look into.
The muff punt, really sucked a lot of life out of him. But they, at the end of the day, they still were in position. He had 8 receptions for 83 yards.
PPR league.
The Saints were still in position to win both football games. Actual stereotypical Drew Brees Saints go down, score the ball within the final 2 minutes of the game to take the lead, and the defense, just poop their pants. It's something that has happened that I have witnessed as a Saints fan probably
100 times. It's something that will likely continue to happen because, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sure there are already a handful of people that were waiting outside the Superdome for the Saints to return, Sunday evening. And it's just going to,
and then that happens.
Yeah, and that's just going to be part of it. But Derek Carr's been solid. Hasn't been like phenomenal like he was the first 2 weeks, but he has not been bad per se.
It's a 17-game season. I mean,
Saints fans will rip on him. And looking back on it, the first 7 weeks of this Saints schedule is the hardest stretch, at least on paper. They had to play the Eagles, the Cowboys. They play the Chiefs this upcoming Monday Night Football. No Rashee Rice, so I'm curious how DA is going to dial up against that KC passing attack. Probably just going to bracket Travis Kelce the entire night. And
okay, have fun watching Xavier Worthy have a Jalen Hyatt performance.
I'll deal with it.
Okay.
Fair dues. You go to the Chargers. Then the back half of the season, you get, the Raiders, the Giants. You get the Falcons at home. You play the Panthers, stuff like that. The Browns, who are a mess right now. So, if you can
get price for Sunday is $39. I am so tempted. No, I'm not. I cannot do that right now. All right. No, can't. Not even if I take the metro and walk the mile and a half to the stadium. But I can't believe that in the middle of this historic run, that 30 years since they've looked like this, and why not us? Why not? After 33 years of complete ineptitude, come back, and the last team that won a Super Bowl for you in DC gets met by anybody that knows what they're talking about. When we talk about greatest teams of all time in NFL history, that one comes up, the 1991 Redskins. All right. Why not immediately, as soon as you get rid of the scourge and start this era anew, why not right off the rip, do it again? Why not? Yeah. Who says you can't? Where's the rule that says you can't? There's none.
There's not a rule. And looking back at history, most quarterbacks that win Super Bowls either win them on their
very early in their career.
Yeah, very, very. Most of them win very, very early in their career when the team is not paying the quarterback and they're able to bring in a bunch of weapons and build a really solid defense around them. It's how Russell Wilson got his Super Bowl.
It's almost like quarterbacks should stop asking for $50 million if they actually want to win games.
It's almost like teams should realize that just having a quarterback doesn't mean everything.
But it sells tickets and jerseys.
It does sell tickets and jerseys, and that's what a lot of owners seem to really care about more so than anything else.
Oh, Josh Harris is rolling cigars with dollar bills right now.
Yeah. Saints, Monday Night Football in Arrowhead Stadium. You got to figure it out. If the Saints can somehow win this football game, not blow another game in the final 2 minutes, that would be really phenomenal. I'd rather them just lose outright than do that to me for a third straight week in a row.
Well, and you're going to have like some dynamic forces working against each other here because Patrick Mahomes is like only allowed to lead the game in the second half during the last 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. But the Saints are going to do everything in their power to make sure the Chiefs have to try hard.
Yes.
To not be winning the game by the time the final 2 minutes come around.
Yes.
So it's really going to be interesting to see who can be purposefully worse.
No. The Saints the past 2 weeks have pretty much set up this Monday Night Football game to be picturesque NFL script. Patrick Mahomes leads the game-winning touchdown in the final 2 minutes of the game. Yeah. If it happens, I just gotta deal with it. Yeah. Move on to next week. They play Tampa next week. We will see how all of that plays out.
Hardy Graham will be Monday night trying out the Riley O'Brien, noted member of Gump Twitter, method of helping your team survive a late push by their opponent at the end of the game. And that is locking himself in the bathroom not being allowed to watch the television and blacking out on a Monday?
I would, but I do have to go into work Monday night.
No, you don't.
No, I do.
No, nonsense. Call out.
The problem is I took off Saturday and Sunday night because I am going up to Nashville for the Alabama game. Visiting a friend up there. So
are you gonna get some cupcakes? They've got to have a fancy cupcake place on Broadway.
I'm sure they do. I'm gonna get some hot chicken for sure, though.
Okay. Nice.
I'm gonna do a bunch of the touristy stuff. I'm gonna leave tomorrow afternoon. Part of the reason why we're doing the show tonight instead of tomorrow, I'm driving up to Nashville tomorrow.
Did you ever get the suspension addressed in that Tacoma? Like, are you gonna die on the way up there? Okay, all right.
We are all good.
Good.
Just had to replace the alternator last week, so that was fun.
It wasn't a misfire in cylinder number 3 due to a spark plug that doesn't belong in a Toyota truck.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope.
That wasn't the same issue I had.
Yeah, but
that's how I got an alternator.
Yeah, but new alternator, new battery, oil change. We're all ready to rock and roll up to Nashville. So I'm gonna do all the fun, goofy, touristy things on Friday.
Go for it.
Saturday is game day. So
I think Will Miller and I's trip to Nashville for the SEC tournament championship game against Texas A&M, the Brandon Miller season. I think that trip in one day was the thing that started my suspension's decline towards what its current state is, which is, quite frankly, just not roadworthy.
Yeah.
Life rolls on.
Life does.
So does the Tide.
The Tide goes on. Tide gets the chance to play a Clarkley team that's, has shown flashes of being a decent football team throughout this season. And then we'll drop games against Georgia State. Tide shouldn't have an issue this upcoming Saturday. If they do have an issue, I'm going to put my pants in the stadium. The anchors will not be down this upcoming Saturday, as I hope will be the case. But Aiden, is there anything else you want to touch on? We got a couple of minutes before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's touch on this NASCAR thing that we both took a minute to read about before we came on tonight. I think Michael Jordan might actually be really and truly, honestly, making a desperate swing at the club to try to save NASCAR. I don't necessarily, just as somebody that's not a NASCAR fan, okay, I like racing that's not on pavement. That's my preference. Or
Fair
racing in the Food Lion parking lot amongst like soccer cones.
You big
nothing else.
Horse racing fan?
No, autocross. People in shitbox Fiestas from 2008 just with no insurance. Or their regular daily driver insurance. That one's fun too.
Yeah.
But regardless, not a NASCAR fan. I'm a total outside looking in here. I had to read about this to really present it. And it would appear that basically for the last 2 years, NASCAR has been negotiating with not a collective body, not because NASCAR doesn't do that. There is not a collective body to bargain with for NASCAR. NASCAR is privately owned by the France, correct? Or the French family? Still?
Yes.
So, yeah. And so like this is still Billy French Sr.'s descendants running the whole show, which, all the love in the world to everything, the empire that man built, clearly it's 2024, and it kind of shocks me to learn that's still how things work. So right now the charters expire, and each team is given a charter in order to be granted allowance to participate in all 38 races that season, correct?
Yes, that is my general understanding.
Okay, so right now these charters have an expiration date. This charter, this batch of charters that teams have were issued mostly in 2015, it sounds like. And they're set to expire with the current
due
TV
up in terms for the, in time for the new media rights deal to be signed. Because, right now NASCAR is primarily carried on Fox Sports.
Yeah.
They do races on FS1 during the football off season. This upcoming Sunday is the Yellowwood 500 in Talladega. I hope a handful of you get out there and go see the race. Fantastic opportunity, but essentially what Michael Jordan has filed in, Michael Jordan and one other team that's involved with NASCAR.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just a small club. Yeah.
Yeah, they filed an antitrust suit against NASCAR and the France family, essentially for running a monopoly over the stock car racing industry. It's saying that these teams are not really given a fair shot to earn money in any real ways. A handful of team owners have come out and said that it's not a very profitable business to be in.
No, it really does feel like being the band that like it is on its first like tour outside of their locality, and like they're pretty much told, oh yeah, you get a cut of the door and whatever you sell at your table, and somehow every night they get $7 for the 6 of them.
Yeah, they get to drink free all night, but by the time they
play with loud toys,
by the time they replace a string, pay for the hotel room, and fill up their car with gas, there's no money.
There's no gas to make it to Kiss Me after that.
Yeah, so they're trying to figure out ways to get back out there. And NASCAR is a sport as a whole that has been losing interest since the 90s and kind of the early 2000s. There's a couple of things that you can point to as the reasoning behind that. A lot of people will point towards the addition of the playoff and the chase, and just the way that they're framing that up instead of the older, more traditional model of point scoring and winning races throughout an entire regular season. Makes, I guess, every race feel more important throughout an entire season rather than just get in the chase and then like finish top 10 or whatever. It doesn't really hold as much weight, in my opinion.
It should be really simple. It should be really simple. We have 38 races and 40 drivers, or in this case, 36 drivers every year. All right. Go win the race. And whoever after 38 races has won the most races, that's the guy that wins. And the guy that has the second most wins, not the second most wins plus some second place finishes and no finishes under 10th place and whatever the hell, he gets the silver trophy. And then the guy with the third most wins gets the bronze trophy. But this thing where like people that don't actually come in first place in a race at any point throughout the season can like.
Yeah, and they've changed it up where, races essentially have 3 phases. So teams will try to just like win phase 1 of the race. Yeah. And it instead of trying to win the whole damn thing.
And they're too long. This has been a beef of mine the whole time. I get.
Well, no, I don't have a problem with. No. Part of the thing that draws me into a NASCAR race is you got to go the whole 500 laps at the Yellowwood 500.
This is the stage thing. Like it not only just the stages, but like every time, we all have to get tires at the same time in the pits. Everybody comes back out and it's a reset of the whole race. And it's like, okay, why don't you just make the race short enough that like we're going to see how long your tires and your fuel last. That's part of the race. And, I don't know. It just feels like every time we restart it feels like a new race.
It is. There is some chess match stuff going on with when teams decide they want to refuel, get new tires. Do they want to? How many tires are they going to add onto their car? Are they only going to refuel? Or are they going to worry about getting new tires? Do they have the best pit crew back there to, possibly help them jump up a couple of spots in the race after, doing all of these different things?
And so maybe this is part of it. Is maybe I, as the casual observer, if I felt like NASCAR was doing a better job, especially the broadcast, maybe Fox, of making sure I know those things. And I feel like I get that in football all the time. Like, everybody whose wife has watched 7 football plays in her life can walk in the living room and mostly follow what's going on a drive because of what Tony Romo is telling her. Okay?
Yeah.
I can't say the same for NASCAR. I've got no idea why we're running 500 laps other than it used to be about running the rum from the port or running the wine from the ports in Maryland to the mountains in Tennessee where you sold it.
Yeah. And so, as a whole, this lawsuit's essentially saying that France family has a monopoly over NASCAR. And, all of these teams have been pressured into signing the new deal, because right now there is no alternative option for professional stock car racing, at least at this level.
Right, and nothing that is, because you're right, they don't make a lot of money. There's a lot of costs associated with it. To do it at this
Yes.
level, it's the cost. There's nothing that allows them to recoup their cost. No other level of racing allows you to recoup the cost of the racing.
Yeah, and so we'll see if like how some federal judge decides on this case.
Well, you saw who the lawyer is, right?
I did not.
This is where we wrap up. This is what we end on. Okay, finally. Sorry, guys. Jeffrey Kessler.
Okay.
Jeffrey Kessler, who I can't remember if he was just heavily involved in Alston or if he was the guy for Alston, but Jeffrey Kessler has been the guy for a lot of these NCAA suits over the last couple of years that have really spun that whole world around and on its head. And he is also the point man for the NFLPA, the MLBPA, the NBA or PA, and I think whatever the association for women's soccer is, NWSL. So this is not a small fish. This is a really big fish. And I think this is probably a much bigger fish than the French family has on their side, per se. And he has the track record. So, for those of you that don't like the empowerment of the players and don't like, the teams being able to make the money that they deserve to make, and that like seeing monopolistic entities control a sport and have a stranglehold on it that allows them to exact their will and only their will over the future of that sport. If you are one of those people that likes all those things, then on that terrible disappointment,